Childhood emotional neglect is not always what people imagine when they hear the word neglect. It isn't always visible. It isn't always dramatic. It doesn't require obvious abuse or poverty or a broken home. It can exist inside families that looked from the outside completely fine. Families where the bills were paid, the meals were made, the birthdays were remembered. But something quieter was missing. The emotional attunement, the consistent presence, the parent who noticed not just what you needed physically, but what you were feeling internally. Psychologist Jonas Webb describes childhood emotional neglect as the failure to respond adequately to a child's emotional needs. Not cruelty, not malice, often not even intention, just absence, where presence should have been. An absence, when it happens consistently enough and early enough, leaves something behind. Not always memories, not always pain you can point to clearly. Sometimes just habits. Ordinary, unremarkable, daily habits that feel completely normal because they've been there since before you had the language to question them. Here is what makes this so difficult to see. The habits that form in response to childhood emotional neglect don't feel like responses. They feel like personality. They feel like simply who you are, fixed, permanent, yours. You don't think, "I apologize constantly because I was taught my feelings were inconvenient." You just think, "I'm someone who apologizes a lot." You don't think, "I feel guilty resting because I learned my worth was conditional on productivity." You just think, "I'm not very good at relaxing." And that gap between what these habits actually are and how they get understood is exactly what keeps them invisible for so long. Most people who carry the signs of childhood emotional neglect don't describe a painful childhood. They describe a normal one, average, fine, nothing major, and that's precisely what makes this so important to understand. Because the absence of obvious pain is not the same as the presence of what was needed and what wasn't given, quietly, consistently, across years of childhood, shape the nervous system in ways that are still showing up today, in the most ordinary habits you have. Habit 1. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You say sorry before you finish the sentence. Sorry for asking. Sorry for needing. Sorry for taking up space in a conversation, a room, a moment. Sorry for existing in ways that could, theoretically, inconvenience someone else. It happens automatically, before you've even assessed whether an apology is actually necessary. And most people around you don't notice, because it's become so seamless, so woven into how you communicate that it reads as politeness rather than what it actually is. A nervous system that learned very early that its presence required justification. When a child's emotional expressions are consistently met with irritation, dismissal, or silence, the child doesn't conclude that the adults around them are failing. They conclude something more immediate and more damaging. I am too much. My needs cause problems. I should be smaller. And smaller over years becomes automatic. The apology is not weakness. It is the adult expression of a child who learned that taking up space came with risk and found the safest way to preemptively manage that risk every time, before anyone even had the chance to respond. Habit 2. You feel guilty. When you rest, you sit down, and almost immediately something activates. A low, uncomfortable feeling, a pull toward productivity, a quiet internal voice that says, you should be doing something before you've even fully exhaled. Rest doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a problem, like something that has to be earned. Most people assume this is just ambition, just a strong work ethic. But psychology sees something different underneath it. In homes where emotional attunement was absent, where love felt conditional on behavior, on performance, on being good and useful and low maintenance, Children learn a survival equation very early. My worth is located in my usefulness, not in my existence, not in simply being here and being loved for that alone. In what I produce, in what I contribute, in how little trouble I cause while doing it. And that equation doesn't dissolve when childhood ends. It follows you into adulthood as a body that cannot fully rest, as a mind that treats stillness as something dangerous, as a person who genuinely cannot remember the last time they sat somewhere without a phone, without a task, without something to justify the space they were taking up, and simply felt okay about it. That's not ambition. That's a nervous system, still trying to earn something it should have been given for free. Habit 3. You don't know what you're actually feeling. Someone asks how you are, and something happens inside you that is not quite answering. A vague response forms: fine, tired, okay. Words that gesture towards something without landing anywhere specific. And not because you're being evasive, but because genuinely you're not entirely sure. This isn't emotional unavailability. This isn't coldness. This is the predictable result of growing up in an environment where emotions were not named, not explored, and not responded to with any real consistency. Emotional literacy, the ability to identify, name, and understand what you're feeling, is not innate. It is taught. It develops through a specific kind of relational experience. A caregiver who notices what the child is feeling, names it with them, and responds to it as something real. You look sad. Do you want to talk about it? That sounds really frustrating. I understand why you feel that way. When those responses are absent, when emotions are consistently ignored or minimized, the child doesn't develop the internal map that allows them to navigate their own emotional landscape. They grow into adults who feel things deeply, but cannot always find the words for what they're feeling. Who knows something is wrong, but can't locate exactly what. Who describe their emotional experience in physical terms: tired, heavy, off, because the emotional vocabulary was never properly built. Most people never realize this was something they should have been taught. They just assume they're not very good at feelings. And that isn't the truth. That is the gap where something should have been and wasn't. Habit 4. You overprepare for everything. You rehearse the conversation before it happens. You anticipate every possible response. You prepare for outcomes that are unlikely. And if something unexpected happens, if the conversation goes differently than you planned, something in you spikes, a discomfort that feels disproportionate to the situation, a need to regain control. Most people call this anxiety or overthinking. But psychology sees a nervous system that grew up in unpredictability. When a child's emotional environment is inconsistent, when the adults around them are sometimes present and sometimes absent, sometimes warm and sometimes cold, without clear pattern, the child's nervous system makes an adaptation. It starts trying to predict, because if you can anticipate what's coming, if you can prepare thoroughly enough, maybe you can prevent the thing that hurts. Maybe you can stay one step ahead of the unpredictability. That strategy was intelligent. It helped you navigate environments that genuinely required it. But here's where it starts affecting your life now. The preparation never stops, even when the unpredictability is gone. Even in safe relationships, even in low-stakes situations, the nervous system doesn't trust fine. It keeps preparing, just in case. Habit 5. You find it almost impossible to ask for help. You will exhaust every other option first. You will struggle longer than necessary. You will research, attempt, fail, attempt again. And only when you are completely out of options, sometimes not even then, will you consider saying the words, "I need help." And even when you do say them, something in you stays braced, slightly uncomfortable, slightly apologetic, waiting for the response to confirm what some part of you already expects. that your need is an inconvenience. Childhood emotional neglect teaches this lesson without using words. When a child reaches for comfort and finds absence, when they express need and receive irritation, when they show vulnerability and discover that the adults around them don't quite know what to do with it, they draw the only conclusion available: needing things from people is not safe. And that conclusion hardens into identity. You become the person who handles things alone, the capable one, the one who doesn't make things harder for other people, the one everyone relies on, who secretly doesn't know how to rely on anyone in return, not because you don't want support, but because somewhere underneath the capability, your nervous system still believes that needing people is a risk you can't quite afford to take. Habit 6. You feel responsible for other people's emotions. When someone in the room is upset, you feel it in your body before your mind has finished processing it. Something activates, a pull toward fixing it, managing it, smoothing it over. A low-grade discomfort that doesn't fully resolve until the other person seems okay again. And if someone is upset with you specifically, even slightly, the response is immediate, a flooding sense of responsibility, a need to repair it as quickly as possible. This is called emotional hyper-responsibility, and it is one of the most consistent markers of childhood emotional neglect. Because many emotionally neglected children grew up in households where the adults' emotional states were large, unpredictable, and unmanaged, where a parent's mood determined the safety of the entire environment, where the child learned that monitoring the emotional states of the people around them was how they stayed safe. And so, they became exquisitely attuned to other people's feelings, and almost completely untrained in giving the same attention to their own. Most people never realize this is where it came from. They just think they're empathetic, just think they care deeply. And some of that may be true, but some of it is a child who learned that other people's emotions were more important and more dangerous than their own. Here is what matters most. Every habit on this list was intelligent. The apologizing, the guilt about rest, the difficulty naming feelings, the over-preparation, the self-sufficiency, the hyper-responsibility. None of it was dysfunction. It was adaptation to an environment that required it. The problem is that the environment that required them no longer exists, and the habits remain. You were a child. You worked with what you were given, but you are not a child anymore. And some of what you built to survive then may be costing you something real now. Small actions. This is not a list of things to fix. This is a list of small permissions. The next time you apologize, pause. Ask if it's actually needed. Rest without earning it once this week. Let the discomfort be there, and stay anyway. Let someone help you with something small. Your nervous system needs evidence that needing people is survivable. These are small, repeated moments of doing something slightly different, which is how the nervous system finally learns that the old rules no longer apply. You are not broken. You were a child in an environment that didn't give you everything you needed, and you adapted beautifully. But adaptation is not healing. The version of you that learned to apologize for existing, to earn rest, to manage everyone else's feelings, that version deserves something different now. The things you do every day that feel like personality are actually just old survival strategies. And survival strategies, once you can see them clearly, can finally begin to change. You didn't choose any of this, but you get to choose what comes next. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Out of these 6 patterns, which one felt most personal to you? Tell me in the comments. Because the truth is, the moment you can name what's been running quietly inside you for years, that's the moment the pattern starts to lose some of its grip. And if this video gave language to something you've been carrying for a long time, if it explains something you've never quite been able to put into words, subscribe to UNFELT and press the bell icon to all, because there's more here that was made for you.